Hi, welcome back. This is the second part of the artificial lighting kind of course for 3ds Max 2019. We'll look now at the settings for a light object, a light source object. So I'm just going to click on the object so that we can edit it and therefore see the settings. Okay, there's a lot of these settings. Excuse me. I'll try and explain them as we go on. First one's here in these general parameters. Okay, the light, is it on or off? Okay, when you switch it off, the icon will go black. My graphics card's not really catching up very quickly here. You can see the icon's black now. We'll click on it again, put it back on. Does it have a target or not? So having targeted or non-targeted is a bit pointless, because you can add a target to a non-targeted light whenever you need to. Again, it's showing you the distance from the light source to the target. That's useful to know. Okay, if you're wanting to work out the brightness at a certain desk height, for instance, then it's good to be able to work with some numbers there. Is the light going to cast shadows? They usually do. Okay, what type of shadows though? Now this can be a bit annoying in the way that the software shows you options that aren't necessarily available to the objects you're looking at. So something like these area shadows aren't pickable for the light source that I'm using. Okay, they're automated actually for these photometric lights, but there's sometimes you encounter settings in 3D Studio that it displays them, but they aren't relevant to your particular object, and that can confuse people. Okay, the exclude button is very clever. It's something you can't really do in real life. I could have this light source illuminating the walls, but tell it not to illuminate the floor. Okay, and so it's completely unrealistic, but it's useful sometimes if you're wanting to control things better. The light distribution type, this is very important. Okay, this is kind of a general overall setting. Photometric webs excuse me. Photometric webs will use the IES lights, so these are very accurate bulb shapes and settings. A spotlight, we'll come back to this later on. Okay, if I change it to spotlight, you see then that we get a different. It's not behaving correctly, this viewport actually. Let me just my viewport's not rendering quite correctly. I should be able to see the way the light is behaving. I'm just going to switch this off and put it back on again, see if it's needing switched. Just to make sure. That's better. That's more like it. We can see the way the light is behaving now. Okay, so we're in a spotlight mode at the moment, and we get these two cone shapes emanating from the light source. The inner one is called the hotspot area or beam, and the outer one, the duller cone, is the fall off area, or also known as the field. Okay, so if I increase the size of the hotspot, you start to see the light spreading out, and I can take that further. Okay, but notice the light doesn't stay intense out at these ranges, because it's got a natural decay on it. It will die off according to the inverse square law. Okay, so let's put this back down to a bit more usable standard. Okay, so really useful for controlling the shape of the beam. Okay, well, the next panel is the intensity, color and attenuation. You can choose kind of standard light bulbs, which have got slightly different temperatures or different colours. You can specify your own temperature for the light bulb, or if you want something a bit more dramatic colour-wise, then you choose a filter colour. So if I go for, say, a pink here, you start to see the light change to pink, and if I go right across here, we've kind of got an instant disco. Okay, I'm going to put it back to white for now. Okay, the next one here is very useful. These are the units that you want to use for your light. You can have lumens, candelas, or lux, LUX, at a certain distance, and this is very useful for architectural situations. So if we want to specify a desk height, then you say about 750 above the ground, we might want the beam to be 2000 lux at let's just check the distance, 2.86. So if we take 750 off that, it'd be 2.1. So we want 2000 at 2.1. Okay, so that gives you the brightness at the kind of working height. So that's the tip of that blue kind of hemisphere. Okay, so you've got options then. You can either control the brightness of the light, or you can control the distance. So if the light is the same brightness but further away, effectively it's a brighter lamp. It has to be to achieve the brightness along a further distance. So you could get a bit confused by that, by adjusting one and the other without being consistent. Okay, so let's put this back the way it was. It was 1500 at 1 meter. Okay, you won't necessarily get that setting with all the different light types. You certainly get it with a spotlight. Okay, we'll not talk about dimming here. I actually haven't experimented with that, so I'm not sure what are we doing there. I think it's basically a dimmer switch kind of setting. Attenuation is useful though, and this is how far the light will travel away from the bulb. So I'll put it back to a uniform spherical light. Okay, so this is chucking out light in all directions. I believe this is caught up. Okay, that's better. It's only showing the light when I click on it. Okay, that's okay. And if we put the attenuation on and set it to say, okay, it will start at 2 meters and the light will be dead by 4 meters. So you're really cramping the power of the light, and that's these two spheres that wrap around. So the darker one in the middle is your start attenuation distance, and the outer sphere is your far attenuation distance. Okay, and use that kind of carefully, because you're kind of overruling the natural decay of the light. So it does look more natural without the attenuation. Okay, now this next one, shape and area shadows, depends on the shape of object that's generating the light. So this gives you quite a bit of design freedom. You can have a line light source. If I look at this, I'm trying to find the length. So the length is tiny at them. It's 1.2 meters. There it is. If I click off it. Okay, so you see the shape on the ceiling is a bit more linear. You can adjust the length of that line to 5 meters long. Okay, it's now going through the wall, or it should be. Okay, alternatively, something very short, say 0.5. same, isn't it? Other shapes that you can use which are useful are the rectangular ones, or just big discs instead. And the size of the disc doesn't necessarily increase the brightness of the room, which it would in real life. If you had a bigger lamp, you're going to have more light, but it does, impact on the shadows. So it does make the shadows smoother if you've got larger light sources. Okay, we'll go back to a point source for the light. Okay, and the other settings here are more for the other light types, for the standard lights, for instance. Ray trace shadow parameters. This is to do with the accuracy of shadows, which is you don't need to tamper with for these photometric lights. They generate their shadows very accurately. Okay, so that's the kind of general setting of the light. So let's put it back to a spotlight. So we'll go for a spotlight. Okay, and let's make it a bit brighter. It's a bit gloomy. So let's say it's 1500 at 2 meters. Okay, and then if we clone that around the scene, so you hold shift and drag, okay, and instance these, then you're getting the benefit of just controlling one light and it will affect all of them. Okay, hold shift again, instance these. Okay, let's have a look at a render and see what that comes out like. It's pretty good, quite like that. But the problem is we're missing the light source. This looks kind of weird because we haven't got anything generating the light. It's just kind of magically coming out of concrete. It's a bit unrealistic. So I'm going to go back till we just have one light. Okay, I'm going to rename the light. So give them names so that you can find them in your model. So if they're a corridor light, just call it core light, or if it's a kitchen light, K light, something like that. Excuse me. So I'm just going to call this downlight 001. Okay, then we'll create a cylinder and we'll try and center this on top of the light. It's not going to be exact. Okay, make it reasonably big. Okay, so we've got a little cylinder there on the floor. Let's modify that so we get it a bit more realistic size. I'll have a radius of 0.08, a height of 0.175. We don't need 5 height segments, just one will do, and 18 sides should be enough. It's automatically going to smooth it. Okay, so let's push that up here. We want to just sneak in between the light and the roof. So what I need to do now is move the light down a bit. Okay, at the moment it's just a cylinder. There's no inkling of a light source there. So I'm going to change back to all. Click on the cylinder. I want to edit this to skim off the bottom face. So I'm going to edit mesh, use the face selection level, and I want the softer window. It's been a bit awkward. Okay, that's good. I've got just the bottom of the light source there. And we're going to detach that, and this will become DL, so it's downlight, self-illuminating, DLSI 001. Downlight, self-illuminating 001. Okay, close the mesh editor and rename the rest of the cylinder. So this will be downlight, what we call this, downlight cylinder 001. So everything's all starting with 1. Got it all tied together. Click in this position and you should be able to select downlight SI001, and then we'll add a self-illuminating material to that. Okay, don't use this, it looks bright but it's not the material. Okay, we want to use I'll just use this simple ground material here that's sitting ready to go. So it's a very basic material. Okay, I'm just going to drag this and copy it and call it SI. But I don't want this to be very powerful, so this is for show only. So I just want it to be able to be visible. SI show. Base color white. There's no reflections on that. Okay. Use an advanced material to disable reflections. Okay, but I'm looking for the emission setting here, and it doesn't need to be very strong. Let's go for 0.25. Okay, we can't see any of the base object. If you take that too low, so if I go for 0.15, you can start to see the original object. So 0.25 is just enough. It's not going to be too bright, but it illuminates the scene. Okay, I've got my DLSI001 object selected. I'll assign the material to the selection. Okay, I wish my viewport was working properly, guys. It's maybe a little driver issue that it's not showing up properly. Okay, so that's the kind of the unit now. We've got the objects together. Let's just make sure that it's working. We'll render that, and we should see the lamp, the light source, as well as the light. So it looks much more realistic. Okay, I didn't choose a material for the lamp, but I could have done. Okay. And then what you do is you group that. So group, we'll call this downlight 001. So everything from here is going to be numbered correctly. Within each group, within each instance group, we'll have the correct light, the correct numbering. A few more of these. For instance, put some in between. Okay. Quick test render. It's much more believable with the light fittings. Okay, then any changes you want to make, all you need to do is open one of the groups. So I'm going to just flip around so I can see which group it is I'm picking. Okay, and I'll go for this group. It happens to be the first one. It doesn't matter if it's the second one. There's the fifth one. Okay. Do group, open. See the pink wraparound indicates that it's a group. Select the lamp, actual light source, okay, and we'll change the type of light source now. So we'll go for a photometric web. We need to choose the IES file that we want to use. Okay. This is where the IES files come in. Let's just look at the choices that are in there. So some very interesting light sources and very interesting patterns. Okay, 25 is very complex. We've got about 5 different kind of cascades of light through that one. So I'm going to go for 25. So back to 3ds Max, and we load in 25.ies, and the photometric web is this graphic here. Okay, the manufacturer of that light is actually unknown. Other ones might have a manufacturer name. Yeah, Leuchten, Erco. Who else we got? Kurt Versen. Oh, basically German, these ones. Okay, we'll go with 25 and open. Now we don't necessarily know how bright that's going to be. Sometimes they're really vivid and bright, and other times they're quite gloomy. So you need to do a test render to see what's going to happen. Okay, so a bit on the weak side. Okay, I can cancel that. So click the light source. Try and get to that. There we go. And we need to increase the intensity or the distance. So let's triple this. So it's about 650. So let's go to 2000. Check the render on that. That's looking a bit more interesting. Just getting more, all sorts of different kind of patterns appearing now. They look much more interesting. Okay, I don't have long to wait to render for these, so I'm just going to cancel that. Okay, and your light material. Well, sorry, we should close the group now. So you activate the group, close. Okay, lighted objects. Let's say we just throw our self-illuminating material onto this ball. See what happens when that renders. And that's big enough to actually give off some light. So you see it is illuminating the scene, but you don't have kind of the same control that you have on the light objects. Okay, maybe just copy that and have a different coloured light. So if we make the base colour green. Okay, so there's a hint of green there. It's hard to see. Make the emission lower. Maybe make it 0.15. Could type it correctly today to help. Let's just call this SI green. I'll have the same name material. And I'll put this onto the cylinder. And let's see what this looks like. So we've got white light and green light. Through a bit too strong there. Check that I put the right material on there. Okay, maybe we need to adjust the luminance here. Let's just go for 500. Put down there. Not working quite as I was expecting. The colour not really coming through there very strongly, is it? Let's see if we can. Maybe we need to. Oh, sorry. We need to put the colour into the emission. That should do it. Change the base colour instead of the emission colour. Oh, that's better. Let's give it a green light now. Make that a bit stronger, as it was 1500 and this was 0.25. Yeah, that's better. Getting green light. So it's not the base colour, it's the emission colour. Okay, these self-illuminating objects, they look kind of weird because they can't receive shadows and emit light at the same time. It's not kind of physically possible. Okay, right, when you when you get into this stage with a design, it's great to be able to experiment with lighting. It's all animatable as well, because these are all numbers. You can control the intensity. You can make things become light and fade off. You can have a lot of fun with lighting. Okay, so I hope that's been useful for you. I won't use the word illuminating because that would be very cliched, but I suppose I just did. All the best. Thanks.